Chicago's pulse thrummed above, but beneath the city, in the damp, shadowed tunnels, silence reigned. Javier Morales, a 35-year-old urban explorer and former journalist, crouched in a narrow passage, his flashlight beam cutting through the dark. His wiry frame was clad in a worn leather jacket, his dark eyes scanning the graffiti-covered walls. He'd been mapping the city's underbelly for years, abandoned subway tunnels, old freight passages, and forgotten sewers, chasing stories no one else dared to tell. But tonight, in the summer of 1978, he'd stumbled onto something that made his skin crawl. Javier had grown up in Pilsen, a kid who loved puzzles and secrets. After a stint at the Chicago Tribune, he'd quit when his editors buried his exposé on city corruption. Now, he freelanced, selling maps and stories about Chicago's hidden places to niche magazines. The tunnels were his obsession, a maze of history and decay beneath the skyscrapers. Most were mundane, rusted pipes, crumbling concrete, but rumors persisted of deeper chambers, sealed off since the Great Fire of 1871, where a shadowy group called the Order of the Beneath held sway. 2 weeks ago, while exploring a collapsed freight tunnel near the Loop, Javier found a steel door, its surface etched with a symbol, a circle bisected by 3 lines. Like a fractured clock, it wasn't on any city plans. The lock was rusted but intact, and when he pressed his ear to the metal, he heard a faint hum, like machinery or voices. He'd returned with tools, prying it open last night. Beyond was a stone staircase descending into darkness, its walls carved with the same symbol. Javier's gut told him to walk away, but his curiosity was stronger. Tonight, he descended, his boots echoing on the steps. The air grew colder, thicker, smelling of mildew and something sharper, like ozone. At the bottom, the tunnel widened into a chamber, its walls lined with shelves of dusty books and strange artifacts. Glass vials, rusted gears, a cracked hourglass filled with black sand. In the center stood a stone table, its surface engraved with a 3-line symbol. Javier's flashlight caught a leather-bound journal on the table, its pages yellowed but intact. He opened it, his breath catching at the words. The Beneath chooses its keepers. Leave or be claimed. The journal was a record, written in different hands, dating back to 1871. It described the Order, a group tasked with guarding the Pulse, a force beneath Chicago that kept the city alive, or so they believed. The entries spoke of rituals, sacrifices, and a machine that hummed in the deep tunnels, maintaining balance. The last entry, dated 1975, read, "The pulse weakens. A new keeper must be found." Javier's hands shook. This wasn't history. It was happening now. He pocketed the journal, his journalist's instinct kicking in. This was a story, maybe the story, but he needed proof. As he scanned the chamber, a noise, metal scraping stone, echoed from a side tunnel. He doused his flashlight, heart pounding, and pressed himself against the wall. Footsteps approached, slow and deliberate. A figure emerged, cloaked in a dark robe, the 3-line symbol embroidered on its chest. The figure carried a lantern, its light revealing a pale, lined face. An older woman, her eyes sharp and unblinking. "Who's there?" Javier called, his voice steadier than he felt. The woman didn't answer. She set the lantern on the table, her movements precise, and began arranging objects. A vial of dark liquid, a small knife, a bundle of dried herbs. Javier stepped forward, clutching the journal. What is this place? What's the Order? Her eyes flicked to him, cold and assessing. "You shouldn't be here," she said, her voice low like the hum he'd heard. "The Beneath doesn't welcome trespassers." "Tell me what it is," Javier said, holding up the journal. "This pulse, what's it doing?" She smiled thinly. "It's the city's heart. Without it, Chicago falls. Floods, fires, collapse. The order keeps it beating. You've taken something that isn't yours." Javier tightened his grip on the journal. "I'm not leaving until I understand." "Then you'll stay forever," she said, stepping toward him. The knife glinted in her hand. Javier bolted, sprinting down a side tunnel. The woman didn't pursue, but her laughter echoed, chilling him more than the damp air. The tunnel twisted, branching into a labyrinth. His flashlight flickered, the batteries weakening. He cursed, slowing to check his map, a crude sketch of the upper tunnels, useless down here. The walls were different now, older, carved with symbols and faces, their eyes hollow and watching. He found another chamber, smaller, with a rusted machine at its center. It was a tangle of pipes and gears, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. The air vibrated, making his teeth ache. This was it, the pulse. Javier snapped photos with his Polaroid, the flash illuminating strange markings on the machine. He didn't know what it was. Geothermal, electrical, something else. But it wasn't natural. The journal had mentioned sacrifices. Was that why people disappeared in the tunnels? He'd heard stories. Vagrants, workers, explorers, gone without a trace. Footsteps again. Javier hid behind the machine, his breath shallow. Two figures entered, robed like the woman, their faces hidden. They spoke in low tones, words Javier couldn't catch, and began adjusting the machine, pouring the dark liquid from a vial into a slot. The hum intensified, and the ground trembled slightly. Javier's camera slipped, clattering to the floor. The figures turned, their lanterns swinging toward him. He ran again, deeper into the maze. The tunnels seemed alive, shifting, closing off paths he'd just passed. His flashlight died, leaving him in darkness. He fumbled for matches, striking one to see a new door ahead, its symbol glowing faintly. He pushed through, finding a circular chamber with a pool of water at its center, reflecting the dim light of bioluminescent algae on the walls. The journal had mentioned a heart chamber. This had to be it. Javier knelt by the pool, his reflection distorted. The water rippled, though no breeze stirred the air. He opened the journal, skimming the final pages. The order believed the pulse was tied to the city's fate, fed by rituals, blood, offerings, lives. The machine stabilized, but only temporarily. Javier's mind raced. Was this a cult or something real? The hum was louder here, vibrating in his bones. A hand grabbed his shoulder. He spun, facing the woman from the first chamber, now joined by the two others. "You've seen too much," she said. "The Beneath needs a keeper. You'll do?" Javier swung his flashlight, cracking it against her arm. She flinched, and he ran, dropping the journal but keeping his camera. The tunnels twisted, leading him upward, toward faint city noise. He emerged in an abandoned subway station, its platform crumbling, the air thick with dust. He climbed to the street, gasping in the humid night air, the Chicago skyline glittering above. He didn't stop running until he reached his apartment in Pilsen. Locking the door, he developed the Polaroids. The images were blurry, but the machine's outline was clear, its symbols glowing faintly. He hid the photos in a safe, knowing he couldn't publish them. Not yet. The order would come for him, He'd seen their faces, their secrets. The next day, Javier visited Rosa, his old editor at the Tribune, now retired. She listened, skeptical, as he told her about the tunnels, the machine, the order. "You sound like you've been underground too long," she said, but her eyes lingered on the Polaroids. "If this is real, you're in over your head. Get out of Chicago." Javier didn't leave. He couldn't. The story was too big, the truth too close. He returned to the tunnels the next night, armed with a new flashlight and a knife. The steel door was sealed, cemented shut, as if it had never existed. But the hum lingered, faint under the city's roar. He found a new entrance, a grate near the river, and descended again. The chambers were empty now, the machine gone, the pool in the heart chamber dry. But the symbols remained, etched deeper, glowing faintly. Javier took more photos, his hand steady despite the fear. As he climbed back to the surface, he heard footsteps behind him, soft, deliberate. He didn't look back. Weeks later, Javier's apartment was found empty, his maps and photos gone. The Tribune ran a small story about a missing freelancer, but no one connected it to the tunnels. The city hummed along, its skyscrapers gleaming, its underbelly silent. In Pilsen, kids whispered about the man who chased secrets and never came back. Beneath Chicago, the pulse beat on, waiting for its next keeper.